it's not a competition. It's growth. The growth potential is there is no limit. And that's the only measurement that you should have when you train or when you come to a training camp or when you go work out with the group. It shouldn't be am I first or last. It should be who was I when I showed up today and who was I when I left.
Good morning, Coach Robbie.
Welcome back, May 6th, 2019, Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 265.
Yep. Man, you must have the counter handy.
No, I tell you, I've been on a pretty good groove here, and we've had a lot of really good feedback here the last few podcasts, and so when people have like emailed in or commented, they've been very specific in telling us or telling myself or posting like what specific podcast it was. And so it's kind of helped me. It's going to help me stay in the moment and stay in tune to what the actual number it is that we're on. And yes, Crushing Iron Podcast 265 every Monday and Thursday. We come to you and we appreciate you listening.
We do, man. I got to tell you, man, I've been up early today.
Wait, really?
Oh yeah. I
Okay,
woke up at 7. I've been struggling to figure out what to do with myself.
You should be entering Taper Zone for Chattanooga 70.3 next weekend. And if this is your first time listening, Mike is definitely not usually up early, but we just finished up our first training camp, our first tri camp of 2019 ended yesterday. And we have very, very early mornings. And I gotta say, I gotta give you some kudos and some props that you were solid in your early morning wake ups, and I think that we could attribute that to your housemates as well. I'm sure, but they can't leave without you. So you got to hold up your end of the bargain. But no, we had a great weekend here with some amazing athletes. 22 overall from all over the country, and it was a great time. Lots of lessons learned and plenty of topics to cover today, but.
Oh yeah, man. Well, the funny thing is like, I had 3 guys staying here, and when the coffee grinder starts going at 4:30 a.m., I'm thinking about setting that as my wake up tone.
That's ours.
It's kind of sweet.
Goes off at 4:30.
It's kind of a subtly aggressive, but
it's
firm,
a passive aggressive alarm clock.
Yes, it really is. I guess the drugs are brewing, bro.
Yeah, ours is set for, I think, 4:35.
I was telling some of the guys that I think that this is sort of your subtle way of trying to make me a morning person. With these camps, it's like, hey, Mike, I added a new camp, and it's like 4 days in a row. It feels like race night, It's like,
I'm just getting ready for Chattanooga 70.3.
No, I appreciate it. it. It's like you gotta work on your weaknesses, and it's definitely helped. It helps me. By day 3, I'm usually falling asleep pretty well. So I just need to keep that pattern up. crushingiron.com is where you can find out a bunch more stuff about us if you're new to the podcast. If you want to come into our closed Facebook group, you can search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. It's a private group that has a lot of really awesome people in there and good conversation that won't make you feel uncomfortable, and nobody's going to kind of get, snarky with you, unless it's all in fun.
It's all in good fun.
Yeah,
we have sarcastic fun.
We definitely have some smart-ass people in there, but they're super nice, and it's not like going to, they don't jump on you for asking, what you might feel as like a silly question.
Yeah. Great. There's just a ton of experience and a ton of wisdom in there. So, as Mike said, if you want to be part of that conversation, you can search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. And for all the other things that we do, training packages, triathlon camps, coaching, swim analysis, our blog, other videos, and some nice gear, you can always go to the one-stop shop, that is crushingiron.com. And a big thank you to the feedback that we got. Apparently last week was like a banner week. We've either been underselling or underperforming the last 2.5 years, or we just waited to like put it all out. But we got really awesome feedback, and again, it's much appreciated. Mike and I really do appreciate the emails and the comments on Facebook about the impact that and how much you enjoyed our Ironman Texas recap podcast, and then most importantly, which may end up being one of our most popular, if not the most popular podcast to date, which was the one we did last Thursday. And I think it's also brought in quite a few listeners. So if you're new, go back to the archives, 264 backlogged podcasts to search through, covering all things triathlon related, and then life and how we manage to go between both. So enjoy. And again, thanks for joining us and tuning in today.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, obviously we just got off the camp, so I actually have two topics. And
coming in strong on a Monday. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you lead it, man.
I got up early and had to take apart my lawnmower, so things are cranking, dude.
You know, take apart your lawnmower?
I had to fix my lawnmower, man. It was starting, but it wouldn't keep running, so I dug in.
Ooh, you have a throttle issue?
Yeah. I took apart the carburetor and fixed that, so everything's good now.
Are there actually carburetors in mowers?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you were just trying to sound like you were this blue
a little bit of both.
Mechanical worker. Okay. All right.
It really wasn't as detailed as it sounds, but I did.
So you changed the air filter out. All right, we got it.
No, well, I cleaned the air filter, and then I did the carburetor. I mean.
Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah. But you got to kind of take those steps into the zones where you're a little afraid, sometimes. And I think that's kind of what camp was about a little bit to some people. So I was thinking, the camp really, the theme we always get, right, is that people leave here with more confidence and more community. And I thought that could be a really nice stepping off place for one. And you mentioned earlier that, yes, I am in my taper for Chattanooga along with many, many people that listen to this podcast. So I had a thought about that. We can do that one today, or maybe we can whatever. But, we talk about taper a lot. We've talked about how to taper and things like that. And I kind of was thinking, like, can we take that to a new level? In terms of, like, maybe during your taper, depending on where you're at in certain situations with your bike, your run, your whatever, your rest, your sickness, whatever. Can we talk about, like, how to fine-tune?
Yeah, let's do that one on Thursday.
Okay.
Let's do that one on Thursday, because we're still 2 weeks out. We still got a lot of time. People shouldn't be totally slack-assing it already and getting lazy and watching 17,000 Big Bang Theory episodes for their taper. So people should still be getting after. But yeah, Thursday. Yeah, no, it's a great topic. Let's knock that out on Thursday. But I like that direction, and because taper should be about what you've done. And
I just want to
especially with swimming. So
yeah, exactly. A quick example for me, for example, is like I feel pretty like I've been keeping up with my run and my ride pretty well, but I've been a little bit behind. Is the taper an opportunity to throw in some more swims? If you just want to kind of build your confidence and get your stroke down, or is there just things like rolling and mental preparations, and you have the workout laid out for tapering, but is there other little things that you can kind of do to get yourself fine-tune yourself for the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we can go into that next time, but wow, man, another great camp, dude.
Yeah, another great camp, and I totally agree. I don't want to say I'm always surprised, but I guess often reminded when we have these camps that the biggest takeaway for most of these athletes, and let's be honest, you and I are spoiled in that we get to train and have access to this environment and these locations basically whenever we want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes that's kind of, at least on me, it's lost on me sometimes, the ability and kind of the environment and location and what that does for these athletes. And so just to kind of give like a quick rundown on Thursday, Wednesday night we had our big welcome dinner, and then Thursday we started out at Anderson Road Beach, which is a beach open water area, pretty calm water, beautiful morning, plenty of sun, and we did swim technique and stroke work, a little bit of a workout, and then we took a small break and then headed over to the lab, which is an abandoned airfield that's no longer in use. It's about 1.2 miles around in a circle, obviously totally closed to traffic, no cars. And we've talked about this before, I think, in some of our earlier podcasts, but like it's like taking all of the benefits and greatness of having a trainer and putting it outside.
Mm-hmm.
It is you get change gears, you get a headwind, you get a crosswind, you get tailwind. It's hot, it's humid, there's no fan, but you can. It's a place where if you want to and you're by yourself, you can put in your earphones and just go to work. But it's a great place to put the throttle down. So we did a workout there, worked on some bike handling skills, and then also did a run off the bike, and we were able to do all that with no interference, with no cars, no traffic, not having to worry about outside interference or obstacles. So that's always great, and just having those opportunities is a good thing. And then the next day we did a pool workout. We headed to the Natchez Trace Parkway. If you've never been on the Natchez Trace Parkway, it is a beautiful 444 mile straight shot from Nashville to, I believe it dead ends in Tupelo, Mississippi, of perfectly paved roads. And at least the route that we travel, no stop signs, no stop lights. It is a designated federal bike lane and bike path, so the speed limit max is, I think, 40, and then it goes up to 50. And they're supposed to give you they're supposed to give you the entire lane when they pass. And it is very hilly, but it is obviously there's no switchbacks, there's no super tight turns. I wouldn't call it technical. I would just say it's hilly. It's hilly and fair, but lots of opportunities. But having said that, the more and more we asked athletes, and we kind of do this the last night, Saturday night, and then Sunday morning, what did you like the most about camp? What have you gained the most? And at least 5 or 6 people, the first things out of their mouth was confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think there's so many things to spin off that in terms of why I believe that athletes gain confidence, but so much of it is allowing athletes an opportunity. And again, that's what so much of coaching is as well. But athletes, again, we find ourselves doing the same routes in the same place, in the same environments, around the same people all the time, and we get comfortable, and we limit ourselves mentally, I think, and then in turn physically to what we're actually capable of. A lot of times, just based on location and environment. I don't have hills where I go, so therefore I don't believe I'm good on hills, or I can't do hills. And we had a lot of returning campers from last year, and a lot of the sentiment was, I want a big thing, if you've ever been to one of our camps, is I want to run Percy Warner. I want to run the 5.8. I don't want to walk at all, which just making the 5.8 is a great accomplishment, and then running it is a huge accomplishment. It's a very hilly but beautiful run route that we do, and just seeing people come back year to year and be able to achieve more, and just the confidence they had on the hills on Natchez Trace, or being comfortable in open water, or running in Percy Warner. You're just often reminded of how much sometimes we fall into our own environment, and I don't want to say that we get lazy, but challenging and setting limits upon ourselves is relative to usually location, environment, and who is pushing you. And so when you come to a camp like this, or you go to any camp, and you're put in situations where the environment is different, the people are new, and you're asked to do harder things, you find out something about yourself. And 99 times out of 100, you find out that you're much more capable than you thought you were.
Mm-hmm. We look at it like a lot of these people hadn't been outside on their bikes, for example. And the first day we went over to that abandoned airfield, and I think that's a huge part of confidence, is biting off things you can chew too, because it's like, you haven't ridden outside yet, so we're not going to take you straight to Natchez Trace where you're going to be bombing down hills at 45 miles an hour with wind. And it was it can be, like you said, it's not super technical, but it's a fair and challenging ride. So we kind of got out to the lab and had them, kind of ride around on flat, controlled conditions, and, get their chops back a little bit. And then the next day we went out. But yeah, it's like the run, that run at Percy Warner, it's basically a 5.8 mile loop, and it's about 100 feet per mile gain. And then with
ends up averaging out to be,
Yeah. And then with some, pretty steep downhill stuff that comes out of that. And one of our athletes, and I remember this right afterwards, he kind of got done, and he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. He did 2 loops of it. And last year he was here at the exact same time, and he barely could pull away 1 loop. And you could just see the confidence resonating in his eyes, man. I just felt so good about that. And he was, it kind of just flipped his switch, I think. Because a lot of times everyone has their sport where it's like the biggest challenge, and I think for him, he was like, wow, that just put me over the edge with running. It just took him to a whole new level. And so you just wonder where that's going to go. And I think that's how it builds. And of course, I just think doing it with people like that in new locations, and it can always be scary to, maybe scary, I guess, to go into a new location. But if you got people around you, it's somehow that energy carries you through, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we just did that? That's always the kind of reaction. I mean, I still remember the first time I met you out at Natchez Trace, the first time I rode that, and I'm a fairly good cyclist from before. I had a pretty good background. Natchez Trace scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I'm still close enough to remember how I felt that day. I think we went 35 miles or something like that, but it was the first time that you go into this unknown and then you break through. And I remember the whole time was me sort of like, it was kind of this, oh my God, I'm scared, wake up call kind of thing. And then once you get done, it's like, whoa, okay, maybe I am capable of doing something else. It's just, and then when everybody goes through that together, it hits a whole new level. And it's like steps.
Yeah, but it also, like, in terms of where we find ourselves in our day-to-day training and in our day-to-day environment and the day-to-day locations, and just kind of not falling victim to, but just, being the victim of our own complacency and comfort. Because, let's be honest, triathletes are creatures of habit and comfort. We like to be prepared. We like to know what's going on. We don't like surprises. We love to be in control of basically everything all the time, 24/7. And if something like pops in and I can't do my workout, then all of a sudden, like, you see athletes like get like anxiety about that. Like, they love control. But what so often happens is with athletes that do the same thing or the same routes or the same locations over and over and over again, is you're choosing the destination, and so you conform mentally, emotionally, and physically to the constraints and the availability of what your environment has to offer. But when you come to a training camp or you go to a new location and the destination chooses you, then you have to figure things out. So many athletes, like, they rarely go, like, a lot of the athletes hadn't been in open water since like late last year, so like half the year. They had ridden outside in half a year. They don't have locations that are as challenging or as flat. There was, I think, 3 or 4 runners that did the Pursuing Winter Loop twice and said that's easily the hardest run I've ever done in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah, I can't believe I just did that. And or they hopped out Natchez Trace and think, I can't believe how much I'm so much stronger than I thought I was. And so you're able to raise this bar of, and we talk about this all the time with athletes who got into triathlon and kind of, have tried to become or had this like self-fulfilling prophecy of, I'm just always going to be slow, or I'm never going to do X, or I'm never going to do Y, and I'll never be on Z. And then their body starts to basically, protest against their, athletic ideology of what they can become, but their brain and their mind is so far behind because they still see themselves in this light and in this view of, you'll never be able to do this. You never can accomplish this. You're always going to be slow, or you'll never be able to run a whole half marathon, or you'll never be able to be good at hills. And so you think that, so you become it. But as you get faster and you're more consistent, sometimes you're like, I can't believe I just did that. But your body's like, hello, hey. It's like waving in the corner, like waving like red flags, like, hey, been here for a while. Thanks for finally recognizing me.
Right.
And then now you move forward with this whole new appreciation and mindset of, okay, I wonder what I really can accomplish. And those breakthroughs and those confidence builders can only happen if you're willing and able to put yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable and challenging, and what the answer is just going to be, I don't know how today's going to go, but I'm willing to do it. Because even in a very controlled environment that was the swim session that we did on Friday morning, It was very difficult, and it was hard. But I had 4 or 5 athletes get done with that and say, I've totally been slacking off in my swim.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I've totally been just going through the motions and taking things really, really easy and just mindlessly swimming and A, not working on things, but B, just kind of going through the motions. And so when you put yourself in this level and you give yourself opportunities again to challenge yourself in an environment and again, it doesn't have to be a new city or training camp, but just even where you are in a more challenging route in a new place, you find out things about yourself because again, we get lulled into this paralyzing state of I do the same thing all the time 24/7 and that's just who I am. But wait a minute, it's only who I am because I've chosen not to branch out and do something uncomfortable. And a lot of these athletes, it was their first time coming to camp. It was their first time coming to Nashville. It was their first time coming to these different locations. And some of them was their first time to ever, meet you and I in person or like around these other strangers. And so it takes a lot. It takes a huge leap of faith. But then when you're there and you look around and everyone, I have to say, I give a huge amount of credit to everyone at this camp because they took on every challenge with a no quit attitude. It was one of the, and we don't ever really have that at camp anyway, but it was one of the best camps that we've ever had in terms of athletes' attitudes of I'm not quitting. I'm not giving in. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to figure this out. Whether it was, Natchez Trace Hills, whether it was, running hard in the lab and it was super hot, or whether it was our final session yesterday morning at Open Water Swim where it was misty rain. It was cooler than you would think it would be in May. The open water was a little bit rough and the current was strong, and there was just no quit. There was no give up. There was some open water anxiety, but it wasn't, I'm done for the day. Let me take my wetsuit off and sit and wait while the rest of you finish. It was, all right, coach, how can we figure this out? How can I keep doing it? How can I keep participating? And we had a few athletes and which is always true. Everybody does it. Even the most seasoned athletes struggle in open water sometimes because it is just that environment. And yesterday was I would say fair to almost difficult conditions compared to what most athletes are used to, because most athletes aren't used to tough conditions because A, they don't swim in them or don't train in them when they practice, and then B, if there were conditions like that at a race, well, these days they'll just kind of yank the cord and be like, all right, we're not doing the swim today. We're going to play tic-tac-toe, best 2 out of 3, and then you're going to head out for the bike and the run. But we can't swim in these conditions. They're too impossible. And we had some athletes that were struggling in the beginning because conditions were hard, the wind was high, it was cool, and then you add in cooler water temp, which again makes everything more difficult because it makes breathing more difficult. It's that shock to your body. And so as we sent off a larger group to do a harder workout, we stayed back and worked with some of the athletes. And by the end of the day, when we did our customary open water relays at the end, everybody was out, everybody was running, everybody was racing, everybody was swimming hard, and it was like we never had an issue in the first place. So I mean, that's what I got to give huge props to them. But those are situations and examples of things that are very, very, very difficult to do by yourself.
Yeah, you can't. It takes you got to dig super deep.
You got to dig way deep. We even saw it. And again, I'm gonna hop on my soapbox for a minute. That's all right.
All right, I'll kick back.
What'd you say?
I'm gonna kick back for a few.
That's right. Kick back, relax. So we got out there at 6 a.m. We didn't leave till probably 8:30, 8:40, and we saw at least 3 groups. And listen, if you do open water swims, you go out there and quote unquote practice. We all know what that means. We all know if you're heading out to do an open water swim, practice. Here's what's really going to happen. I'm going to show up. I'm going to take, I don't know, at least 20 to 30 minutes to get dressed. If it's a wetsuit, more than likely 40. Then once I get in it, I'm probably going to stand there with my hands on my hip. I'm going to look out and be like, yeah, I'm probably going to do, I don't know, a couple thousand meters. Probably just relax, get my open water swim in. Then you're going to wade into the water. Then you're going to chat some more. Then you're going to chat some more. Then you're like, it's kind of cold. Yeah, probably just loosen up a little bit more. Make sure my goggles are on right. Then you're going to swim for a grand total of maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Then you're going to leave. And then you're going to be done.
We did it.
yesterday.
Let's grab some breakfast.
Conditions were fierce. First off, please don't go waste your time. Like, if you're going to go open water swim, like, put yourself in a situation where it's not going to be comfortable. Get a workout in. And an athlete asked me last week, hey, can I go to open water swim today or should I go to the pool? You goof off and don't do anything when you go to those open water swims, so no, go to the pool. It's just so, let's just go. If you're going to go, make it something that's going to apply to race day, that's going to put you in a situation where you can improve yourself, not just like, next time just go put your wetsuit on and go sit in your bathtub for 45 minutes. So get back, just do something that's going to make you uncomfortable and get to work. But anyway, off my soapbox, that was a short one. But
that wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad. But so again, it comes down to confidence and mental breakthroughs. Because physical breakthroughs are important too, but those mental breakthroughs are so invaluable that you can actually remember. You're more apt to remember, I think, a mental and emotional breakthrough than you are a physical one. Like, you might not remember that Tuesday run where you ran much faster than you did 3 months later on race day. But if you went and tackled a terrain or a course or a route that you're not used to that was really challenging and you would never even dream of doing it on your own, and you go back and you do this 3 or 4 months later, you'll remember that moment. You'll remember that experience. You'll remember that mental and emotional breakthrough of, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then once you do it, you find yourself like, I want to keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had athletes that did one loop and they're like, I'm doing another one. Because it's like, I don't want to leave this place or this opportunity or this experience of, I'm here for like the very first time and I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And I want to do it again. And it was it was really amazing and just very, very refreshing, like incredibly refreshing to watch athletes put themselves in those situations when the world that we live in now and the training environments that we are at disposal now is so much control and so much how easy can I make it all the time. To put themselves in situations like that they don't know what's going to happen, they're super challenging. You just got to give a lot of credit to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I mean, those mental breakthroughs it's sort of that feeling, right, that you get. We were doing, I don't know, 250 out and backs and then coming up to the beach and then swimming out to the buoy and back. And I remember doing those early in my career where it was like just a major struggle, right? And then at some point you kind of learn to figure out your pace. You learn to be on the edge of being strong but relaxed. And then what happens is, you get done with one of those repeats and then you're like, I can't wait to do the next one. And because you're in a groove, you feel that. And that happens with running and cycling too. It's that same sort of thing where you kind of like, it just clicks for you. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what it's all about, because it's like you said, it's not like you didn't remember exactly that you had your PR out on a hour and a half run or whatever, but you figured out what it means to hit a pace and to be able to hold a pace, and that's sort of that overall feeling of zoning in and you're like, wait a minute, this is how you race.
Yep.
It's not up and down. It's like peaks and valleys and all that other crap. It's like just kind of finding that pocket. People talk about staying in your box. And you can kind of come in and out of that. I think you learn that a lot early. You kind of maybe touch on it a little bit, but then when you can get that extended feeling of what that's like, and you're under control and you're not gassing yourself, and you're like, wait, I can do this a little bit longer. I want to try it again. I want to keep going. I want to climb another hill. It's that uncomfortable factor. There's a story I have over here. I run on this bike path, this greenway, and I can't remember if I told you this or not, but there's from my house all the way into this like park is about 4.5 miles, and there's a flat greenway that goes all the way down there, and there's water, and you can refuel, and it's flat. So a lot of times last year for Louisville, for example, I would just run down that. It's a flat run course, whatever. So I would just find myself going that way. But this year in the spring, we had a flood that knocked out a bridge or something.
Oh, yeah.
So about a mile, or it's actually about 2 miles in. I ran down there one day. I'm like, I'm going to take the flat route today. And I got down there, and the bridge is out. So the only thing you can do is turn around, and then I could be like running the same stupid 2 miles over and over. Or I have now been forced to go up over the river into the hilly section of this of the greenway. So it was just such a bummer to me to be like, oh man, this whole thing, and it's been closed for months, but it's forced me to always take the hilly route. And what a bonus that is, you know?
Yeah.
Once you can, that's what we always say is like when you're running home and you have a option, always take the hill. You know, it's just sort of that, let's build the mentality where that hill becomes no big deal. And that is what's happened to me in running. And it's been the biggest blessing, even though it kind of bumps me out a lot. But it's just, it is. It's sort of, that's that thing about, you know, you get kind of stuck in the same route or whatever. And here's your opportunity to just
because they don't want to see their pace slow.
Right. Yeah. Don't look at
gosh, I don't. Man, I'm always running like 8:20 there, but today, I took the hilly route. So, like in case you just so you know, this was super hilly. So that's why my pace was a little bit slower. Yeah. Okay. Welcome to life. That's how it is for the rest of us on this planet. Like when you take more hills, it's going to be slower, but it's also really, really good for you. So you got to be able to suck it up and say, I don't care what my friends say on Strava or Garmin Connect or Instagram when I send my screenshot. And yes, I don't even have to give like the caveat of very hilly route today, hence the 1030s. You just do them and put yourself in situations where it's not going to be comfortable. And because you're going to find things out about yourself that maybe you're better at things than you thought, or maybe you need to challenge yourself more in different ways. And don't be so rigid and routine oriented to where, and a lot of athletes fall the same in terms of running. They just fall victim to the treadmill. They just get into a habit of treadmill all the time, 24/7, when they could just walk outside their front door. Not all, but a lot of athletes do that. When they go and run their, and yeah, I know weather has to do with it, but even in the summertime, they'll do it because it's easy, and not just because it's easier, but it's also just part of your routine. It's part of your habit, and there are ways where you can make your habit just changing things up, or make a habit of challenging yourself, not just of falling into the same patterns and routines every single time, to where if race day does happen and is difficult, then you're going to be prepared for something more challenging because you've done something more challenging, because you've put yourself in situations where you can't predict and control every single minute or every single second of what's going on. Yeah. You have to adapt instantly, and you won't have time to, or you may or may not have time to panic and rethink about it. But it's just always a great opportunity. So whether you can find a new route or a new ride or a tougher swim, just challenge yourself and be around other people who are willing. Because I'll be honest too. Like there are groups even find themselves falling into that comfort trap.
For sure.
Because people love to, and not just huge groups, but also small groups. Like we just like to run together, and we like to run, but we're never ever going to challenge ourselves. We like to hang out with people that aren't going to challenge us, who are going to allow us to never really push toward. And if you do, you're going to be that runner, or that cyclist, or that swimmer that has to whatever, show off or run faster, or hey, who knows, I don't know, learn something about myself. But you can. Groups are like that too. Training partners are like that too, to where you fall victim and trapped to just doing the same old thing over and over and over again. And we all know these people, and we probably know these athletes or groups where like, I know I can go to this one and totally like slack off because everyone else goes to the same group because they want to slack off too, and they want to take it easy. So find a group, or find a training partner, or find a club, or find a team where you could put yourself or be challenged by other people to be uncomfortable and to challenge yourself in ways that are going to give you confidence, even if it's not every day, even if it's occasionally, when you need to just find that within yourself to learn something new and stay mentally and emotionally and physically sharp to these new situations and environments, routes, whatever it is, that's going to make you stay in tune with being race ready and challenging yourself and giving yourself an opportunity to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do those things on a periodic basis, whether it's with someone in person, whether it's talking to somebody on the phone, or whether it's connecting with another, person on your team via Facebook or phone, whatever, it's just there's so much value in connecting with people who are like the only thing they care about is growth. It's not a competition. It's growth. And when you put yourself in, and that's one of the biggest things I love about camp, and I get it, like our podcast and our team doesn't thankfully attract, the divas and the guys that want to come and they want to be first all things and crush people and yelling out, bro screams when they finish up a bike route or a run and just crushing people. It's supportive. And so just finding people who are supportive of growth and individual exploration and competition, not externally validating my place against others. That's how you're nurtured. That's how you are motivated to emotionally, mentally, and physically continue that growth. Because when you're allowed to do that on your own terms, but you do it around other people that are also doing it, so you have that relationship of you're here, and just you being here is accountability enough. Because I see you working hard and I'm working hard. I see you trying to figure out things about yourself and I'm trying to figure out things about myself. And I don't have to worry about you trying to beat me because you want to beat me. And what I see and what I know is you're just trying to do the best that you can. And here I am doing the best that I can. And when you can surround yourself with those kind of people and that kind of an environment, the growth potential there is no limit, because it's not capped. There is no ceiling based on the other people that are in the same environment, the same group as you, that you have. There's no first, there's last. There's just the you that you show up versus the you that you want to be when you leave. And that's the only measurement that you should have when you train, or when you come to a training camp, or when you go work out with the group. It shouldn't be, am I first or last? It should be, who was I when I showed up today? And who was I when I left? And if you can be better off when you leave, mentally, emotionally, physically, and the other people around you can feel that same way and do the same thing for them, and you can be supportive in that, then it's a win. But that's very, very hard to find these days.
It is, and I think that's the subtlest thing about the camp is when people come in here, because certain people are really good at one thing and others, and it's always just sort of this helpful environment where somebody might be a good swimmer and they feel more and more confident in that, and then the next day we go ride and then they get help from people. And you were doing the classroom session, and because it is sort of hard sometimes to find those types of groups or training partners that are going to give you that push but be supportive and whatever. And you talk a lot about, you were talking about cycling, I think, and how you like to prescribe the same workout over and over, throughout just to see what kind of gains you're making versus the exact same, challenging workout, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes, like with running, I think I stumbled on that by myself, where I went out and I found this really hilly course, and it's back to that, my pace wasn't that great, but I just found that same course and I started doing it weekly, and that's like such a great way to challenge yourself on a course that might be harder than the one you're going to race, right? Because that's the way I always look at it. It's like, well, I know that I'm doing, I find something, for example, like Chattanooga is what's coming up. I find something that might be the elevation gain for Chattanooga, but only in half the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will run that. I was running it almost every week for about a month and a half. And just look at how you're improving on that. If you have to post something, you can say, hey, I PR'd this route today or whatever. But that to me is like one of the best things that you can do as far as challenging yourself and taking yourself out of a course, because it's not always about how fast, it's never about how fast you can just go on a flat, easy shaded greenway. It's
Yeah.
always about how do you, maybe it's the same deal. It's like you took the same amount of time, but your heart rate was lower, that kind of stuff. Those things are so, and it's really hard to even get excited about that sometimes, I think, unless we remind people, because I don't think people look at training that way. And you talk about it, and you're talking about it more and more, I feel like, is that there's these subtle things that are going on that are improvements. Maybe your pace didn't necessarily go any faster, but you're getting in better shape.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to notice that. And I think that's I think that's a really important part of all of this, and I know you do, but you know what I'm saying? It's like there's little things that are going on when you challenge yourself that may not show up on Strava or whatever these things are, that I don't have no idea what's going on, but it's like,
well, it's so much of the little things like that are just the ability. Like some of the biggest breakthroughs that athletes will talk about when I read through Training Peaks are things like, I never would have done this time last year. Like they would have just taken a day off. Or I never would have got up this early, or I'm traveling, I never would have usually ran, but I did. Or because what you're trying to do is you're trying to help promote good consistency and good habits that allow athletes these opportunities. So I think a lot of people see coaching as a very black and white scripted, today you do this specific bike session and you're going to get X, Y, and Z from it. Well, how most coaches, I think, and how I look at coaching is, if you haven't been consistent, I want you to be consistent. And so there's behavioral patterns that as a coach, you can't make anyone change their behavior. You can encourage and you can give examples and you can hopefully put them in situations in an environment where a behavior change is more likely. So, example, if you want an athlete to be more consistent and they keep failing at 8-hour weeks, then you better not give them a 16-hour week. Even though you see most triathletes do that, and we joke about it all the time. Like, I was doing 8 hours a week, I couldn't do it, but you know what? You know what's going to motivate me? 18 hours.
Yeah,
I can do an 18-hour week. I got this. Like, what I need is I need more. I couldn't do a little, but I couldn't do a little because just the pressure wasn't there. So I got to do 18, and then that never happens. But so it's putting them in situations to where they can learn things about themselves and hopefully make these behavioral changes. But even then, when you prescribe a workout, they're going to get out of it what they want to get out of it. Because even if you prescribe a workout, they might hit it to a T, they might go too hard, they might go too slow. And so coaching is just allowing opportunities for them, and it really just setting them in the best place and setting them up for success as much as possible to do as many things that they can do great and to learn from it and then continue moving forward. And so when you see behavioral changes or emotional and mental shifts in what they're doing or versus what they've been doing, that's when you know you're on the right track. But again, those aren't things that you can force feed with a sledgehammer. They're just things you have to keep the door open and hope that eventually they walk through. And that's again when it comes time to put yourself in situations that are more challenging or easier. Obviously, it's. I'm not saying that shame on you for doing it. It's human nature.
Yeah.
It's to do the easiest thing. To do the path of least resistance. That's the straightest line. It's human nature. We all do it. It's like how can I make this the most efficient, easy? I'm gonna do this. But in those opportunities, because I think we're all like this, some of the greatest lessons we've ever learned have been through and because of some of the most difficult things we've had to go through in life. And the same thing goes with training. Like we look at our lives and we think, gosh, like, would I even be this person if I hadn't have gone through this? And the answer is probably no. And the this that you speak of isn't, yeah, man, I had this like 3 to 4 week span where everything went my way. I got this, I got that. Life was super easy. You know what I learned from that? Life was easy. And here I am, the exact same Joe that I was 6 weeks ago. No, that's not what happens. What you do is you say, man, this period in my life was so challenging. It put me through X, Y, and Z. And it was so hard. And man, when I came out on the other side, I can't believe that I was able to even overcome this. And now I know that I can do these things going forward. That's how we learn. That's how we reshape that's how we reshape and shape who we are as a person. And that's the exact same thing that happens when you train. It takes hard sessions. It takes consistency. It takes doing things that it takes going out and doing things that you don't want to do sometimes just because you want to just it's not because you're putting yourself in harm's way. It's an attitude and behavioral shift. And that's when you learn things. When you go do and put yourself in situations like an open water swim or a hilly ride or a hot conditions or anything, or a course you don't know around people you aren't familiar with, that's how you grow. And sometimes you listen and you talk to athletes and you hear from them and you think, I can tell you why you're stuck. It's because you've settled for your own comfortable bubble. And you're afraid to step out of it.
Yeah.
And you're afraid to do something challenging because you're more obsessed with being fine than you. And listen, I had this conversation with somebody last week. It's a symptom of society now too. It's like everyone's obsessed with being fine because we're terrified to do anything truly, really, really awesome because we're also totally afraid of being a failure at it. We have to keep the status quo of I'm fine. Check out my Instagram. Things are good. Mm-hmm. Things aren't great. Dude, things are good. Because we're just terrified. We're terrified to take these to put ourselves at risk. Not like, I'm going to die risk, but put ourselves out there to learn and to meet new people and to do new things and to challenge ourselves physically, emotionally, and mentally to become something better than we are because we're so obsessed with not failing. And so you find athletes and you talk to them and you may be one that just stays in your own little bubble of fine. And you wonder why you're not able to reach a different level of performance or of covering a new distance or just growth. And the reason is because you're just fine being fine. And you can't grow if you're obsessed with that, and you won't put yourself in situations to where I might come in last, or I might fail, or this might end up bad. But I promise you will learn something from it that will make you better. And I think that's what your example of the run route is perfect in that in the moment it doesn't look great because your pace might be slower and your effort level is higher and you're using more energy. And it might feel bad. So externally, it looks like a bad thing to do. But long term, it's great. And that's just one of the most difficult things for athletes and people to wrap their mind around is short-term fine versus greatness, risk, reward, failure, growth, and all those things that we can't predict. But we can predict our own little bubble and staying fine.
Mm. I have a little bit of an obscure kind of perspective on some of this. Don't forget who you are. One of the interesting parts about our camp is, and we try to really work this in, and I think we really have, we talked about working it in more, is sort of this social time. This time where we can get to know people outside of triathlon, because it never ceases to amaze me when we sit down, we start talking to people. We're here for triathlon, that's kind of our common thing, but then all of a sudden we start getting to know people, right? And we start becoming friends, and everybody shares sort of what their lives are like outside of triathlon. And maybe somebody's sort of new to the sport and they're a little intimidated by everything because they're, it's just, it's a lot to learn. It's a big learning curve sometimes for people. And then you hear about what they do and what their life is like. And it's like, my God, you do that? And that's what your life is. I mean, so there's this idea for me about kind of throwing confidence back and forth. So the minute you start telling me, what your struggles are like and just in normal life and what you've been through and how you deal with things, and then you're going to come and try to do these crazy triathlons and you're up in the ante like that. It's like, if you remember who you are and what you do in life and like the challenges you face on a daily basis and what you've got, what done to get to that point, those kind of things need to bleed over into triathlon for me. And I think it's important for, once, maybe you're sitting there, you're talking to somebody who's a perennial Kona qualifier, and then all of a sudden they understand what your life's like, and your life is infinitely more challenging than theirs. And then all of a sudden it's easy to start, like when that conversation happens, there's a confidence that can come out of you. And I think that it's important to appreciate that. And when you see somebody that's like a really good athlete and you're talking with them and all of a sudden the things you do are more impressive to them maybe than what they're doing on the triathlon side. And that sort of like has to happen, I think, between triathletes. And I think it's very important. And that's the thing with our community that I really love, is that it goes way beyond the sport. And we know what these people are like and what they're facing. So we see how they attack this challenge that may be super foreign to them, as in triathlon, and they actually persevere and get through things and they build. And those are really, like, I think it's important to sort of help people see that in themselves. You know what I'm saying?
I 100% agree. I mean, we have athletes on our team and we work with athletes that on a weekly basis, I'm just consistently blown away with knowing what I know about their personal life and their constraints and their responsibilities. I'm like, I have no idea how you do it. Yeah. I have zero. I don't have any idea. Like, it blows me away. I'm just amazed. And when you, like you said, like when you sit down and you're able to talk, because that's just what it is, man. It's just allowing yourself these opportunities to connect with somebody because you're connecting with them. You're not walking up to them with your PR 70.3 tattooed on your forehead and them, because if you do, you're not going to talk to them probably, because you're going to think, what do we have in common?
Right.
But then you remove that and you show up in like regular clothes, and guess what? We all look the same, and so you talk to people, and it's so much, like you said, so much about growth, and like you said don't forget who you are, and I totally stand behind that. But at the same time, it's when you put yourself in situations or around different people or in a group or within a community or with a coach or the training partner, whatever it is, it should be, don't forget who you are, but open yourself up to believing you can be something different. Because don't forgetting who you are is who you believe you are innately as a person. Mm-hmm. But believing you can be some against that internal struggle or norm of I can't, or you'll always be, or we've talked about this on multiple podcasts, or becoming the story you tell yourself. Because what happens is you go out for these training sessions, or you go to these races, and you go to camps, or you put yourself in situations to where you're not comfortable in, or you get a coach, or something happens, and it's like you forgot you were in control of the pen, and it just wrote itself, and you're like, whoa, this isn't these 2 pages are not mine. Who is this person? Yeah. And then you realize it's you. And now you've changed the whole trajectory of the book that you're writing, and the story about yourself. And it's so, the mental and emotional aspect that is training and endurance sports in general. The reason there's so many great analogies you can make between life and training, and what we try to do at least to the best of our ability in this podcast, is because they're so similar. Because there are so many similarities, and I think we obviously, and I believe we did, really kind of hit home with it on our last podcast, how many similarities there are in life, and that's why it's so great. it can only be like that if you open yourself up to those possibilities and learning from them and putting yourself in those situations and not quitting and not giving up. And you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. I know it's going to be hard, and I don't know how it's going to work out for me. But I know that if I approach it with the right attitude and I go into it with the right mindset, that I know I'm going to learn something innately and good, because it's going to change and help a behavior or a performance, or just emotionally how I feel and how I see myself being able to complete things or perform later on. And that is always a good thing. But again, you have to be able to do one of the hardest things in life, especially these days, is to put yourself in a situation to be vulnerable, because you don't know the exact answer or the exact outcome. But if you're put yourself in a vulnerable situation, that's how you grow. And so I cannot encourage you enough that if you're a creature of habit, or if you're stuck in your bubble of fine and control it here and there, that to do things or be around people that will not make you uncomfortable, but that will put you in situations where they are both physically, mentally, and emotionally cultivating growth through self-exploration, through pushing your limits, obviously safely, and just being around those people. It's not that they won't accept you for just being fine. It's that they will, just by the nature of who they are and what they do and how they speak and how they support, will propel you and push you to find things and find ways within yourself to do things that you didn't think were possible. And so it's not risking or doing things alone with the thought of only failure. This is just how we progress forward. And it may have bumps, and it may have downhills, and it may have things that are very difficult. But at the end of the road, I'm going to learn much more about, it's like being stuck going the same route every single way to work for the rest of your life. And then one day you accidentally make a wrong turn and you go down the street and you're like, I'd had no idea this was here. How have I missed this? And you would never know if you hadn't taken a wrong turn or done things out of the routine or out of the norm. And there's just so many opportunities out there that are there for the taking. There are so many good people out there could help you do that if you just are willing to do that, instead of, again, being so paralyzed with fine or just simply defending any intrusion of, we can't be friends because you're going to push me a little bit too much. Not physically to the level of hurt or injured, just I don't really want anybody to push me. Because let's be honest, that's a lot of reason why people steer away from also getting coached. I want to get better, but I like being fine and comfortable more than I really like a surprise or a challenge or someone holding me accountable or pushing me towards growth and supporting me. I want those things, don't get me wrong, but it's just hard to leave the comfort of comfort.
Yeah. It is.
You like that one, didn't you? It's hard to leave the comfort of comfort.
It really is. I mean, I think that string flows through life in general.
No kidding.
Man, I was thinking about this camp, and I'm like, why can't we just do this forever? Like build a co-op community, bunch of triathletes or people that want to just, do things and get better. Have build this whole community with like a lake in the middle with a 2-mile paved road around the outside and awesome running trails and mountain bike trails and clubhouse with trainers and treadmills and a lap pool.
Clubhouse. I like a clubhouse.
Yeah. We just have our own little, tiny homes all over the village.
Why not? All over the village.
Yeah. Like this village. And we just kind of just work out and do stuff and, work remotely, because that's how society's going. I mean, most of us could probably figure out a way to work from home in their upstairs office of their tiny home. Or we'll have like a, little
tiny home.
We'll have a little work center, like at the hotels. Yeah. We can have the printer and stuff down there. if you need to go print out a flyer or something.
What those flyers? Yeah, you work remotely, yet you need flyers on telephone poles. That's when working remotely is called looking for a job. But no, yeah, it would be
assistance.
Yeah, there's more opportunities like that are definitely out there or should be out there, and if they are out there, let us know about them.
So if we have any contractors out there, builders that have big plots of land, I mean, run it by us.
Run it by us. And speaking of connecting, and we'll obviously mention this again on Thursday's cast and next Monday and Thursday, but and we'll announce probably maybe a little get together meetup time. If you are doing Chattanooga 70.3, please let us know. Post in our closed Crushing Iron Facebook group. Feel free to shoot Mike an email, crushingiron@gmail.com. Definitely feel free to send me an email, c26coach@gmail.com. I will be there. Obviously, I'm not racing. We have a ton of athletes racing. I'll be there in full coach mode. And breaking news, we will be kid-free. Oh. So, yeah, we will have a weekend away from a little toddler who we love more than anything. But, hey, who doesn't need a kid-free weekend? And to be honest, race weekend is just like crazy. And my wife has been an enormous trooper here the last 2 weeks, with me being gone in Texas for 4 days and then us having camp for 4 days. Single parenting a toddler. For those of you that do it on a everyday basis, I got nothing but props to give you, because that's situations like that where we're kind of talking about the podcast, to where, like, I don't know how you do it. You're just like you're superhuman. Mm-hmm. It's just it blows my mind. But she's been awesome at doing that, and she's always super supportive. But I think it will be more fun for her too to get out, because she's such good friends with so many of our athletes too. But we'll be there in full force. So reach out to me. I hope we run into you somewhere. Please say hi. And I'm excited. It's kind of a down weekend for us. We have athletes racing, obviously, but kind of a down weekend at home, and then next week it'll be a blast. So if you're out there, look for us on course. We'll be there cheering everyone on, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too, man. Ready to race.
Ready to race. Ready to rumble.
I'll be dog free.
Dog free. Be dog free, living it up in your own hotel room with no share.
I know. My Crushing Iron War opponent has canceled on me.
Yeah, he's retired.
He's retired, I think.
Put him into retirement, I think.
I said, are you going to come? He's not going to race, but I said, are you going to come and, spectate and share the room? He goes, no, I'm going to be in Iowa. I said, oh, boy, what's happened to your life?
Seriously.
I love Iowa, by the way. I'm just saying.
Do you?
Yeah, it's actually really a sleeper.
Well, maybe it's a sleeper enough city to get the new Ironman they're supposed to be announcing here fairly soon. Des Moines,
Des Moines.
Yeah, so I bet you they announced that before the end of this month. They said by June, but I bet you it's before the end of this month. We'll cover that. We'll talk about it.
Well, you know what? The more I think about that, because they've got that whole Ragbri momentum's been building for years. Maybe there's a lot of people over there into it now.
Midwest is a hotbed. We know this.
I'm in on Des Moines.
All right. We'll see about that. I'm going to hold you to it. I'm in
on the idea.
Yeah, that's what I thought, in on the idea. And we're in again next Thursday. We will see you then. Again, for all your questions or about all the other things that we do, crushingiron.com is your one-stop shop. And if you need anything or have other questions, you can always email Mike and I directly. We appreciate you listening. Subscribe, give us your rating, share it with friends, and have a great week.
Yeah. Should we thank our sponsors first?
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
All right. See you later, buddy.
See you.
Bye.